Pump it up, pump it up.
Trae.
Oh, come on, come on.
With Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation, to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peace that make this thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
Grand Rising, everyone. Welcome to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Really excited for my guest in the building today. We've got Jennifer Winslow in the building, y'all. We're going to be talking about the King County Crisis Care Centers. Now, y'all know I'm about to geek out today, so I'm so glad you're joining me. But, you know, this is also the top of the show. So you're joining me in sharing the show with others who you feel could benefit from this daily dose of dopeness we work to give you here on the Day with Trae. And as always, if you can't watch us, you can always listen as well. Anywhere you find your favorite podcast, just search Converge Media Network and the Day with Trae. You will find us there. Well, really, the topic for me today, before I get into it with Jennifer after the break, is these crisis care centers and the necessity for them. Now, we have heard about some of these statistics. Maybe some of you have been able to see them in the news in terms of, you know, the skyrocketing percentages of fentanyl deaths from one year to the next. It just seems like it's just constantly growing. And while there's a lot of education out there, there's not enough prevention services. And we talk about youth programs for prevention. We talk about trying to educate folks, but what happens in the interim, right? And so if you know of someone out there who is struggling with addiction and abuse of drugs, please, you know, make sure they have a direct line of support first and foremost, because to be honest, a lot of times folks who are dealing with these kinds of issues get ostracized from their family, from their friends. You know, maybe you try to be there for them and it just continues, and maybe you feel like, I got a bit exhausted with it. I'm encouraging you, just like I did earlier this week, but in a different way. If those are some folks in your life who are struggling with that, check in on them. You know, see how they're doing. What kind of assistance can they get that won't actually, you know, I guess lead to them using drugs more, right? But sometimes money may not be the answer, but there could be some other resources, some other support, a listening ear, you know, and I'm so glad that Jennifer is here so we could talk about what King County is doing, really helping to model the way around filling this void that we see in our communities for there to be a true crisis care center to help establish a firmament in our community about how we can be there in a real concrete way to deal with these issues that we see in our community. And I'll also say too that as a mother, you know, trying to explain to my son, my 11-year-old, who is out there on the street when we see them when we're driving past, and he's like, Ma, like, is he about to fall? Or, you know, oh my gosh, this person is, you know, struggling. Sometimes they're like it right in the middle of the street when you have a green light, and it just confuses young people. And so the more that we could talk about some of these issues with our young people, the more informed they are, right? And so I'm trying to make sure they understand this is why you want to stay away from these kinds of activities, drug use, things of that nature. You want to stay away from it because we are also seeing that truly a lot of street drugs are getting infused with other street drugs, and you just don't know what you're really getting if you're going that route. And so I just try to be honest with my young son. I know sometimes it's a difficult conversation to have, but not only am I encouraging you to check in on those who may need your support in your life, but make sure that we're having these kinds of conversations with the young people in our lives as well. They deserve to understand the society we are living in, not trying to, you know, bash their innocence or anything, but when those questions come up, find some really great ways of discussing this with young people in your lives. So them being a bit confused or, you know, sometimes even intrigued by this, like what is going on here, we can explain it in a way that allows them to walk away with more information so they can understand some of the dangers or pitfalls that some folks find themselves in. And there's a wide variety of reasons why people may find themselves in this kind of condition. So I'm also encouraging us to move with grace. All right, y'all, let's move with grace. Well, after this short break, Jennifer Winslow is here to tell us a bit more about these King County Crisis Care Centers. Y'all, you definitely do not want to miss this. Stay tuned. You're watching Today with Trae.
Hello, welcome to Elite Insights with Carlos Imani. We're looking to offer an in-depth look at event production industry through the lens of client experiences and joint successes. The podcast will emphasize guest interviews, focusing on client discussing their fields and reflecting on their collaboration with Elite Collective. Again, you're with Elite Insights. Carlos Imani here. See you guys in a few.
What is a bestie?
I like you.
She's fun.
It's about to be a good time.
She's always looking out for you.
Since you're my bestie, I will handle it for you.
She makes you think.
Here to uplift and empower.
She's always encouraging.
You are that girl.
Chelsea Edwards, your bestie in daytime.
I get the spiritual moments.
Chatting with Chelsea. New episodes weekdays at 5:30 or stream anytime on Fox Soul.
Welcome back throughout to the Day with Trae. I am your host, Trae Holiday. And already during the break, I think we just been breaking this down, but I'm so grateful to have Jennifer in the building. What's up, Jennifer?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Now, this is a much needed conversation.
Yes.
And before we kind of get into the crisis care centers, I want to talk a bit about you. Okay. What got you into this line of work? Because you're the strategic planning manager for this amazing initiative. But tell us a bit about your background.
Yes. So as mentioned, I'm Jennifer Winslow, and I'm a licensed mental health clinician here in the state of Washington. But I'm also a licensed professional counselor in the state of Missouri because I'm from St. Louis, born and raised. Came out here for work and for other opportunities, but what really drew me into this work was my mother. My mother was a social worker, and so I grew up in a family that it was okay to talk about mental health. And I know for some that is not always the case, especially in our community. So I was very, very fortunate to have someone in my family that was like, let's talk about this. How are you doing? And unfortunately, my mother passed away when I was 21, and so I continue to do this work in order to honor her legacy.
Wow. You know, I love this because every time I ask that question, I'm so amazed by the draw to something. And it just, for me, it just showcases how there's this divine design and we're all living in our purpose. Like we have something to do here. And so I love hearing that. But, you know, during the break, we were talking about this work really needs, you got to lead with compassion.
Absolutely.
I was talking about grace there. Tell us a bit about how you really formalize that in your role.
You know what, as I was listening to your introduction, the one word that kept coming to my mind was stigma, and how important it is to reduce that stigma around mental health, around substance use, and just thinking about even people in my own family, people probably in your family, loved ones, friends, families who are probably going through something, and just how uncomfortable they are if they're going to feel shamed, judged, ridiculed because they're going through something. And so what do? We stuff it down. We don't talk about it. And so for me, I try to do this work in such a way that I can help to reduce that stigma so people know that it's okay not to be okay, but it's also important to reach out and get help when you need it.
Well, I really appreciate how we were just bonding over like both of us having surgery, and
That's how?
you know, you're in the hospital and you're getting all of the drugs, and you know, so that you don't feel this pain, and then you get home, you get sent home with drugs, and it's like so that you can manage the PD, and that slippery slope.
It is.
Now I'm out of the prescription. They're not going to fulfill my prescription. what else can I do? So like there is this kind of slippery slope, and our systems, unfortunately, are not necessarily set up for us to understand how to deal with those transitions, right?
Absolutely. You know, I think one of the really great things about where we're at now with society is we're finally starting to look at mental health and substance use in the same way that we look at physical health. Because we know you go to the doctor, you break your arm, you can get a prescription, you can get your arm fixed, and you go about your way. But it's not that easy to recognize depression. It's not that easy to recognize other mental health challenges. And so by recognizing that mental health affects us in the same way that physical health is, we're now having that conversation around why mental health matters.
Wow, I love that the mental health piece is a part of this, because I don't think that you should have ever really separated. I mean, really, it's like this holistic approach. And when we think about real care,
Absolutely.
you know, we have to come at it with a holistic vision. So tell us a bit more about what the King County Crisis Care Centers is aiming to do.
That is a beautiful segue to talk about whole person care. And so crisis care centers, I know that this is a hot topic. People want to know, what is this thing? It's popping up in the community. We're hearing people say, yeah, we want this. We're hearing people say, what is this? There's this unknown. And so about 2 years ago, King County passed a ballot measure ordinance for a levy. And this levy essentially would do three things. It would build a network of crisis care centers. It would also provide funding to bring back mental health residential beds. And then it would also invest in the workforce. And so when we talk about a crisis care center, we are doing something that is first in the nation. These models exist. You may have a crisis care center in a one-off in a state, but we are creating a network. And the beautiful thing about that is you will be able to receive services anywhere in King County. So I live in the South End, I live in Kent. There will be a crisis care center in the South, but that doesn't mean that I'm limited to only the South, because I could be up north and I could be in crisis. You think I'm about to drive all the way down south to do that? Absolutely not. So we are building something different. We are building this network of centers, which is going to be absolutely beautiful, right? And so what a crisis care center is essentially a place where you can go and receive services for mental health services or substance use services. So there's actually going to be three components. So there's a behavioral health urgent care component. So just think about urgent care right now. You go in, you sprain your ankle, something like that. So this is very similar. Maybe I'm having a bad day. Maybe I don't know what I need, but I know I need something and I'm just like not feeling the best. I can go and I can be met in that behavioral health urgent care component. Let's say I may need a little more support. Maybe I'm having symptoms of schizophrenia or something where I am not safe to myself. There is a 23-hour observation unit in which you would be able to receive comfort and care for 23 hours, up to 23 hours and 59 minutes. Don't ask me about that number. It's state rule, so we'll just leave it at that. But then let's say, all right, I don't need as intensive care, but I still need a little more services. Then there's the 14-day stabilization period in which there will be beds, up to 16 beds that folks can go and they can stay there. And so there's kind of this continuum of services. But what we have found through research is that about 80% of people who actually attend a crisis care center will get their needs met in that behavioral health urgent care component. And I think, you know, what's really beautiful about a crisis is you get to define what a crisis is. I can't say, no, you're not in crisis. That's not what that is. You get to define what that looks like, and you have people who are trained and dedicated to help you find the supports that you need. You know, I think about the last time I was in a crisis. My mind is so scattered. I lost a necklace that was so important to me. And people were asking me, well, where did you have it last? I don't know. What were you wearing? I don't know. I couldn't think logically in that moment because there was such a heightened emotion attached to that. And so I think about people who may be in crisis and they go here. Sometimes I don't know what I need, but I know that you can help me figure out what it is that I need. And so I'm just so excited that there will be this resource out here in community that folks, anyone can attend, regardless of their ability to pay.
Wow. I mean, when we think about this being a model, I always love when, you know, just the innovation that we have here throughout the state and King County, Seattle, you know, to be honest, oftentimes is trying to lead the way in such a part. So I love that this is really a model that's being created around a network of care. Also, because what I realize is that a lot of systems don't talk well to each other.
Yes.
And so if I get services in, you know, the county over in this city over here or whatever, right? I'm like, you don't know. You don't understand. And then I don't know how to tell you this is what I got over there. So the fact that all the cities in King County will be really connected to this is important, but it does set a standard here.
Absolutely.
That, you know, then I'm always like hopeful. So because I'm like, well, what does it look like to do a regional approach, right? So I love that. Even if something is statewide, the idea that we could model it here and then, you know, understand how to service people better, because that's really what this is, right? We've seen a heightened sense around police violence, or maybe just not being trained in the right kind of services for the right kind of call. So this is really special because folks will be able to kind of self-identify. I need something. I'm not help. I need something. What are some of those things that you all, in terms of your planning, that you're really hoping when this rolls out, that people will understand about these centers in particular?
That's a great question. So I think the biggest piece here is one's ability to receive services despite their ability to pay. And so while we will be leveraging, you know, Medicaid and other private insurance, and folks can use that, we also know sometimes people don't have insurance, and how that, you know, go to a hospital and then all of a sudden you get stuck with a bill. I know people that are like, I'm not going because I don't want to have to deal with that bill. You will be able to receive services despite your ability to pay. And that is because that levy has made this possible. So the other thing I think that's really important about this is the King County voters voted for this. They said, we actually want this in our community. So for me, I feel a personal sense of responsibility of people voted for this. They want to know where their money is going. They want to know what is the progress that's happening. They want to know where the support's going. I want to know where my dollars are going, truth be told, right? And so I think it's really great that this was something that was approved by the voters. That also means we have a responsibility of making sure that we are holding ourselves accountable. So I do want to just say that the county will actually not be running these facilities. We will actually be procuring these out, and that other operators, behavioral health agencies, will be applying. And then through a competitive procurement process, we will select those operators. So we're currently in the process of selecting 2 operators right now. We've already selected our first one, which is Connections Health Solution. They're located in Kirkland. So this is our official first center within the North Crisis Response Zone. We'll be looking to identify 2 more here actually this summer. So we're kind of going through that process. And then our goal is to be able to select the final 2 here probably early sometime next month. But again, we have a commitment to community to say we are doing something. So once these get rolled out, then we have a responsibility of, are these centers doing what they say that they're doing? And so how can we as a county hold space, be it an accountable entity, so that if someone has an experience and they're like, that wasn't that good, that feedback loop. So bringing that back to us, you know, so in all of this, community engagement has been so important. I have a community engagement liaison on my team. She goes out. She is phenomenal. Her name is Ida Belfose. And so if folks want to know more, if they want to have a meeting with her, she is happy to set that up. But because we really recognize the importance of community and centering community voice, because here's the thing, this is a large investment, but you can have these buildings, but if you don't have people inside those buildings, what's the purpose of having that building, right? And so we want to make sure that community is aware, especially those that historically have not had a seat at the table, that have not been able to give voice and say this is what they want or what they don't want. So here's an opportunity to really connect with community and say, okay, you putting this in my neighborhood, this is what I want it to look like, or this is what I don't want it to look like.
Whoa. I mean, you know, what I really appreciate is when something is very thoroughly thought about. Right. You all have thought about the different layers here. Really centering community voice is key in an initiative like this, especially because you're building a model. You can't really serve people without understanding how they need to be served.
Absolutely.
And ultimately being malleable. You know, my mom always said, be fluid and flexible. Because if maybe you thought something, or maybe earlier research said something, how do we adjust once we understand how those services are actually playing in community? So I appreciate this, you know, very community-centric approach to this. But you were sharing something with me, and I just realized that, you know, you're the right person for this job because you come from direct service. Yes, is what you were telling me. And how did you feel like your experience, past experience in St. Louis, really set you up for success here in this role?
So yes, I did direct service. I worked at a substance abuse treatment facility for pregnant women and women with children. And so I got to meet some of the most amazing women who just fell on hard times. I met amazing mothers who just needed a little extra help and a little extra support. And so in that work, I was able to just really just develop even more compassion and even more empathy and understanding that we all have things that we go through. We all have traumas. We all have bad days and whatnot. And I've been very, very blessed. I have an amazing family and I have amazing coping skills and resiliency. But that's only because I had those supports growing up. And so working in that environment, recognizing that not everyone has those supports. And so how can I be a part of that support? And then, of course, I was working there. And it just got to be too much. And I recognized that about myself. I was experiencing that burnout. And I think any clinician that is in this field needs to be aware of just, I'm not as effective as I once was because I'm just taking on too much of this. But I still want to be a part of this work, right? And so coming out here, I was able to shift and move more into administration, training, operations, things like that. So I still get to be a part of the world without actually having to do direct service. I say that, but I got a private practice on the side. So I still keep my foot in it just a little bit. But I think all of those experiences, being direct, frontline, hearing those stories, and then being able to use my skill set, my strength, my education, my resiliency, and how can we then create this model so that that mom who just needs a little extra help can go here and not feel shamed.
You know, so I'm listening to you speak. First of all, I could talk to you all day.
I know.
I absolutely adore this. And you. You're phenomenal.
Thank you.
But I just watched the movie Straw with your mom.
Ooh,
so
yes.
it just, as I'm listening to you, and I'm getting a little verklempt because I'm like, yo, that movie, I mean, what I appreciate about this movie, y'all, it's on Netflix. You know, it's a Tyler Perry film, Taraji P. Henson, our girl, Sherry Shepherd. You know, we love you, Sherry. And of course, Tiana Taylor, amazing. The three of them. But Taraji said something in an interview because someone said, oh, Tyler Perry's always making movies about downtrodden white women. And she said, but those stories are real and they deserve to be uplifted. So what's wrong with us actually showcasing this? And this is just a mother who was dealing with a lot, right? So to your point, where would she go, right? I mean, when I think about those characters, that character represents people in our communities. So I'm just so grateful that you are there to bring your expertise to this effort and you're working with a phenomenal team and that we are able to make this real for folks in King County because it is so necessary. And I love that we'll be able to learn more about this. So of course, I got to give you time because people out there are going to go, wait, how do we stay connected? How do we continue to learn when these doors are opening? Please look right there. Let them know how they stay connected to this amazing initiative.
Yes. So I was going to talk about the movie as well, but I was like, let me not give. And you think we'll talk off camera about that one because that ending, we'll talk about that one. But back to what I was saying. So the Crisis Care Center, we are up and we are moving full steam ahead. So if you want to know more about the work that we're doing, you can email us directly at ccclevy@kingcounty.gov. There is someone who monitors that inbox. We also have a website, so it's Crisis Care Centers. I'm not about to give the full one because honestly, I don't even remember it, to be completely honest. You can Google it. But if you go to the Levy inbox or email us, we can hook you up with our newsletter. We also do monthly community meetings, and so we were doing them for a while. We put them on sunset, and now we actually just brought them back. We had one just last week. Our next one is July 15th. This is your opportunity to come, learn about the initiative, where we at with our initiative, and then how you can get involved in the resources that are available. So I will say, when in doubt, please email, reach out directly, and we will be happy to connect.
Wow. Jennifer, I mean, seriously, thank you for coming to Washington State.
I know. It's been the journey. It wasn't how I envisioned my life, but you know, when you get lemon, what do? You make lemonade. And so I think like you talked about Washington being one of its kind, being so innovative. I love St. Louis. I go home all the time. Those are my people. However, there's just something about what Washington, what Seattle is doing about mental health and having that conversation that I always tell people, yes, I want to move home eventually, but my time's not done here yet.
Yeah, well, we're grateful for it, and we are definitely benefiting from your presence here. Thank you so much. Anytime you got an update, you come on back.
I will.
Okay.
Actually, I think we're coming back here next week. My team and I will be doing a panel of some kind, so look forward to that as well.
Well, thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Wow. Y'all, I'm in awe right now because I have been at the very beginnings of these conversations around the need for this. You know, this really is that call to action that community was urging our government to do something. Please step in, figure out how we support our people with a holistic approach. So I'm loving to see all of this come together. Y'all know I'm going to wrap it up right after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
We're electric. I feel like the fans can feel that, and we're just going to keep this going. He struck him out! Gino, like he never left Seattle!
Keep bringing the energy. We really need it. Let's go!
Got him at home! Goodbye, baseball, Cal did it!
We show a lot of heart. This team has a lot of fight. You guys have been electric. You guys are the key to this, so thank you guys.
In Seattle, it's more than just coffee. It's community. At the station, we brew more than just your favorite cup. We brew connection. From Beacon Hill to Columbia City, we're a space for artists, activists, and everyone in between. A place to gather, create, and simply be. Whether you need a quiet place to work, a lively spot to meet friends, or just a moment to unwind, find your place at the station. More than coffee, it's home. Visit us in Beacon Hill or Columbia City. The station, where community happens. Here on Back to Besa, it's always been important to me that we uplift stories from across the region, and that no matter where you live in the nation, you never have to miss a moment of the show as we continue to highlight the beauty, excellence, and resilience of our communities across the Pacific Northwest. Why? Because representation matters. So no matter where you live, be it the Central District or Centralia, Portland or Pullman, or anywhere across the country, I encourage you to join me on this Back to Besa journey by downloading the free Fox Local app on your phone or smart TV as we continue to elevate the very best in our communities.
Working with Benjamin has been totally different than working with a traditional bank.
They're real, and they meet you right where you stand.
I was recently funded, and that money has just changed the trajectory of what we're able to do and our output. This has been just more than just funding or a one-on-one connect. It's been an opportunity for us to really grow and connect and build roots within the community.
As a small business owner, you need to put your faith into the right people, and they seem like good people to put their faith into.
Welcome back, y'all, to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Y'all, I gotta say, I love it when I get to sit here and just get completely inspired. And that is what Jennifer did for me today. Huge shout out to my guest, Jennifer Winslow, for joining me today, giving us some real insight into these King County crisis care centers. For some of you who may have been following, all the way back from the morning update show when we were covering all of the needs and resources in our community, this was a huge call. That community was saying, we need something. It's not the hospital. It's not the jail. It's not the prison. Where can we bring our people? And I'm so grateful that King County voters said, you know what, we do need to pour money into this effort to make these crisis care centers real in our county. And without a full-fledged model of how to do this, they are finding out how to do it. And I'm so grateful that Jennifer and her phenomenal expertise and perspective is there as a part of this great team. Shout out to all of y'all who are looking out for your loved ones. And let's remember that crisis has many different forms, right? And I'm appreciative of those who understand it could be anybody in crisis. You don't know who you're on the bus with, who you're, at the bank with, who you may be, getting services from, that waiter or waitress, or, you just don't know who is struggling. And the fact that we finally had an answer to begin to provide holistic care to people in need is beyond necessary. And I'm just grateful that we live in a place where they are saying, you got to figure this out. You got to figure this out now. And I'm so grateful to Jennifer for shedding some light on all of this. I want y'all to be inspired too, because inspiration, as I'm always saying, it can really be the antithesis to apathy. When we're apathetic, we don't feel like doing nothing about nothing. When we are inspired, it sparks something in us to figure out, how do we contribute
to this amazing ecosystem here, not only in our state, but in our region, in our country, in our world. How are you contributing? I encourage you to find your way to be inspired so your contributions can benefit not only yourself or your family, but others around you. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. I'll be wrapping up the week with you tomorrow. And until then, at a living in you, y'all, peace.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.